Welcome to the 2021 Masters of the American West Landscape Impressionists Painters Breakout Sessions with Peter Adams, Len Schmiel, and Daniel W. Pinkham. Here we have four works by Peter Adams: Breaking Skies over St. Malo Beach at Sunset. Afternoon Glow, Cathedral Cove, Anacapa Island. Golden Cove Breakers. Churning Surf at Sunset, Golden Cove, Rancho Palos Verdes. Works by Len Schmiel. Afternoon Matinee. Languorous. Spotlight, center stage. Welcome to Ojai. And last but not least, Daniel W. Pinkham's Sunset, Light of Comfort.
So folks who have joined us, we'll just be waiting a few more minutes to allow everyone time to come into the room. We'll just be a few more minutes. We have about 17 of you in here, so we'll just give it a minute or so. You are welcome to ask questions in the chat. You can also raise your hand as the video showed if you have a question to ask Peter later in the program. So my name is Ben Fitzsimmons, and I'll be the moderator today, but really you're not here to hear from me at all. You are here to hear from a wonderful artist, Peter Adams, who has been involved in the Masters of the American West for many, many years, and has been president of the California Art Club since 1993. Peter, would you like to introduce yourself, talk a little bit about the works that you've submitted this year to Masters?
Ben, thank you very, very much. As you said, I'm Peter Adams, but this is my much better part, much better half, Elaine Adams, and she's not only beautiful and wonderful. She's been my wife now for 30 years, actually 31 years, because we got secretly married before in Tijuana. And so we've been married twice together.
That anniversary, don't forget, is coming up this Friday.
Uh-oh. I almost forgot the last one, which was
February 16th.
Yeah. So,
hi, everyone.
as Ben nicely said, I'm president of the California Art Club, and I've been with the Masters now, I think 16 years. what I think is wonderful, and I'm just honored to be with the Masters of the American West. It's such a great group of artists, and I feel particularly proud to be in that number. They do such great work and so innovative in so many different ways. In the last 4 or 5 years, I have really focused on painting the Pacific Ocean and painting moods of the Pacific. And that's what I've centered in on now in this last Masters. The painting that you see behind Ben is a painting of Anacapa Island, which is the smallest of the Channel Islands. And actually there are 3 Anacapa Islands. They're separated, but they're each very small. You can't really get from one to the other unless you swim a little bit, but you can't get down because the cliffs are so steep there.
It's off of Santa Barbara, right?
It's off of, yes, you leave out Ventura and you take a boat there. And so this is Cathedral Cove, which is one of the more picturesque coves on Anacapa Island. But I love painting the ocean. I grew up by the ocean, I grew up surfing. I still like to think that I can surf, but I don't surf as well as I used to. I can tell you that.
Yes, you do. You're good.
No, I'm not, but thank you. That's why I married you. Yeah, the ocean is always a great inspiration for me. And being a master of the American West, how can you get more west than the Pacific? So it is part, and of course, California had a great history of the American West too. So many great adventures happened in California. It happened by the coast. So I love to go up and down the coast too and paint. Also, I'm president of the California Art Club, which was founded in 1909. And we have, I don't know, sometimes the numbers vary, but about 3,000 members or so. And we exhibit all throughout California. Our big main event is the gold medal exhibition, which we've had at the Autry show at the Autry Museum for, I think, is it 2 times or 3 times?
3 or 4 times.
I think it's 3 times we've exhibited at the Autry Museum. Hope to do it again sometime too. It's a wonderful, wonderful museum, as you know. And Ben, I want to thank you and Rob and everyone involved with the Autry. You're also professional. Amy Scott, of course, and Rick West and Janet Riley. And,
we have so many friends there at the Autry.
Yes, and it's just a wonderful place. Now, do you have any questions for me, Ben, at all?
Well, you talked a little about the picture that I have, the painting that I have behind me here. Would you like to say anything about the other pieces that are on display as part of the Masters? I can bring those up if you'd like.
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you, Ben. That's very kind of you.
We should probably talk about plein air, the philosophy of plein air painting too.
Okay. Well, plein air, as you know, is a French term. It means in the open air. And so I love to go out in nature and just commune with nature. When I'm out there painting, it's just kind of a love fest. I just love to relax. If I'm doing a pastel, I'm actually sitting down and working. And it's kind of like I just pick up a color and start working. I don't really think. I just work automatically. And that's how my paintings have become. I
think it's more it's emotional.
You're right. It is emotional.
Spontaneous.
And I do try to paint the mood of nature rather than an exact object that I'm looking at. A lot of times, painters today will paint the thing that they see and render it very, very well, almost photographically. I tend to think a little bit differently. I like to paint the mood. As you know, the painting that's behind you, the virtual painting behind you, the top left-hand side, the sun is actually reflected off the water. You can't see the water behind the hill on the left-hand side, but the sun is actually reflecting it and making the light is infused, and you're not really seeing the outline so clearly. It's diffused by sunlight is what I'm trying to say, not infused, diffused. And so that's kind of an atmospheric effect that lasts for maybe 15 minutes, because that's a reflection of the sun. The sun is here, it's about 2 o'clock. So the sun is still fairly high in the sky, but it's reflected in the light. If you're standing up higher, you would get it blinding in your eyes. That's always been something that's fascinated me about painting, is painting effects that when you're looking into the sun or looking into a bright light, you have a brim of your hat and you can move it up and down. And the way you move it gives you an idea of how much you see. You don't see, if you're looking and you see the full sun, you're blinded because of the rods in your eyes are take over and you can't see anything hardly. It's like being in a dark place. You can't see anything because it's dark. When it's too bright, you can't see anything because it's too bright. And that happens sometimes out of doors. And the way you can change that a little bit is by using the brim of your hat and blocking out part of the sun. And so then you get a whole different view. Sort of like that, I guess. But anyway, it's
maybe a wonderful art term that started out in the Renaissance is chiaroscuro.
Chiaroscuro, yeah, that's right. It's the opposite of chiaroscuro.
Obfuscated in darkness, details obfuscated
right.
in darkness. So this is details obfuscated in light.
So I love to play with light that way. And you get that, of course, on the West Coast at sunset time. And when you're looking, and so things are changing very, very quickly. So if you show the one from, there's a painting that I did, one of the three ones, maybe you can flip to that. It's just flip and I'll tell you which one it is, Ben.
I have the titles. You can tell me if you'd like the title.
Oh, the title. Well, it's one with Golden Cove, but it's sunset at Golden Cove, I think. Yeah, there. See, that is interesting because I got to work with the ocean, which I love, and playing with the waves. When you're painting the ocean, you've constantly got the waves in motion. So I like to just feel it and then come up with my own waves rather than take a photograph and copy the waves. So that's what I've done here, is gotten a feeling of the waves surging and ebbing and then of course the reflection of the sunset right on the peaks and that bright glare that you would get. It's challenging to work with white foam and a glare, because the glare is brighter than the white foam, but you think of white foam as being as white as it could be, but it isn't. It's actually a value or two lower than the glare that's coming off of the sun's reflection.
But it's really the interaction of all those elements of nature, right?
Yeah.
And how they're relating to each other.
But what I love about this is the play of the white water here in the foamy water. Sorry, you say white water and you think of river rafting and so forth, but really the foam and so
I like that bit of reflection of the sun that you captured on that white foam. It mirrors the sunset really nicely.
Thank you, sweetie. I like that. I like that too. And it's Golden Cove is a fascinating place in Palos Verdes. You have to climb down these very steep cliffs to get down there. And I'm able to take my dogs down there too, because the guards never.
Our dogs
are, yeah. We used to have 5 or 6 dogs. We're only down to 3 now, so they're great, but they're border collies.
You need some more.
I actually like to have them take them out painting with me. They inspire me, and so it's fun. But I always have to keep one eye out for these lifeguards or the security people that try to chase me off the beach with the dogs. So anyway, there's another painting I have. Well, let's go back to the first painting, which is the sunset over San Malo Beach, if we can. And this is a miniature painting. This is 9 by 12.
This is San Malo.
Do you see that, Ben? No, that's the other one there.
There we
Yeah.
That's the miniature.
So that's my miniature. So if it looks a little, unfinished or something, it's only a 9 by 12. So I thought that was a lot of fun. When I'm down at our beach house in Oceanside, I go out and the beach is right across the street from us. We don't have any building in front of us too, so I can see the ocean from our our house. And so I've painted hundreds of sunsets down there.
And each one is different.
No,
There's
each
no
one-
two sunsets that repeat.
That's right, right. And so I love this because it had some interesting clouds and nice cloud formations, which are always fascinating to do. A lot of times, you know, when you're painting out of doors and you're painting a sunset scene, you have to anticipate what's going to happen before it happens. You have to put some colors down, like some of the orange colors or the red colors, before they're actually there. The other thing that happens at sunset time, which a lot of people don't know, is that clouds appear that you didn't see earlier in the day, especially around the horizon. You don't see some of the clouds there because when the sun is high, it's too bright and you don't see anything at the horizon. You think it's a clear horizon. Then when the sun sets, you see, oh yeah, there's a lot of clouds there. And so that's kind of an interesting thing, an interesting phenomenon when you're painting out of doors. You do find painting out of doors, there are a lot of physics that are involved with painting that you may not have known before. The other painting I have is the painting Autry's Pastel. This is, that is also at Golden Cove in Palos Verdes. I'm sorry, Dan Pinkham's, that's Dan Pinkham's backyard. And that's kind of interesting. That's a pastel, and pastels are chalk. I have a big range of pastels I could show you here. And to me, it's a wonderful way to work out of doors because I don't have to clean up with my oil paints. I don't have to clean the brushes. I don't have to carry around linseed oil or paint thinner or turpenoid. It's just, I just have my pastels and I open up my box of pastels and then just start working. And so it's really, really a lot of fun to work in pastels.
You told me you like to carry pastels with you when you're up in the mountains too, because you don't have to carry as much equipment and you can work much quicker.
A lot of times when I'm painting and I want to travel light, I just travel with my pastels. And it's such a, I used to be young and strong and virile, and I love to carry as much equipment as I possibly could because I thought, oh, it's a good workout. It's a wonderful way to build muscles and fortitude. But as I get older, there's something to be said with the economy of weight. And so working in pastel is always kind of fun. And I find for atmospheric effects, I'd almost rather work in pastel than oil. And I love these crashing waves here at Golden Cove. This is kind of the outer reef. When you go down there, you have to wade through about almost 100 yards of water until you get to this area where these waves break right on this outer reef of Golden Cove. And
when Peter works in pastel, I watch him. It's really fascinating. It's different than oil painting. Oil painting is great too. You get those luscious, big, broad brush strokes that he does. But with pastel painting, he works very quickly, and the pastels are layered. And at first it looks extremely abstract. It's all just layered work, color on top of color. And then he quickly uses his fingers to control the composition and what he wants to, and the scene. And then as he rubs an area, then the undertones of the colors he laid on first start to pop out and then create some of this glowing effect. But he has to use each finger to control different colors. So he has to remember that. It's very interesting to watch him playing around with and pushing the pastels around, and very quickly, actually. It's a lot of fun to watch.
Some areas in I'm sorry, go ahead, Ben.
I was going to say that transitions wonderfully because I see the Pastel Society of Southern California, someone has his hand up. I have a number of questions popping up in the chat, but I just wanted to transition as you're talking about techniques in case the question can be addressed right there. And then, so if you'd like to unmute yourself, you're welcome to, you can unmute yourself and ask questions.
Sure. Can you hear me now? All right. All right, Peter, how you doing, Peter? Great to see you too. Well, yeah, we have some of our society members here, and we obviously we love all your work, but specifically, we want to talk about this pastel piece because I mean, how does one shift from oil to pastel? And I'm so thank you for explaining some of that right now. But we were interested in that process. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about working in pastel versus working in oil. Is there a great shift in that? Now, the thinking obviously has to be a little different, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, Otto, you're so right. Thank you for asking. Otto, are you still president of the Southern California Pastel Society? Are you still president?
Yeah, still president of the Pastel Society of Southern California, right?
Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful group, and I'm going to be doing a demo with you a little bit later. I'm so excited about that. Personally, myself, and I can speak for a lot of other people, I love your work, Otto. It's just absolutely, you've got, I guess, some roses in a vase behind you.
Actually, I'm working on a piece titled Camellias, and it has to do a little bit with what we've all been going through. Camellias tend to bloom in even the harshest of winters. So this has been a long winter for all of us, and so I thought I'd do a bit of an allegorical piece for this time. It's taken me a long time to paint it, so it's getting there.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Now, you know what? Something to point out. See, you said paint, and I say paint too. You paint with pastels, not.
That's correct. That's correct. That's correct.
It's a painting.
Yeah, it is. And again, it's just to be scientific about it, obviously pastels are a pure pigment in stick form.
Yeah, I had the experience one time, Otto, of being involved with the Oil Painters of America. And they said, well, we're having this exhibition. I'm glad you sent us this one painting. It's beautiful. Peter, can you send us some more paintings for the exhibition we have? So I thought, oh, okay, I will. And I sent them 3 pastels. And not thinking that pastel was a different medium than oil, just thinking, oh, well, I'm not thinking their name is Oil Painters of America. And of course they said, we can't use them. But I think of oil and I think of pastel as just as legitimate as oil painting.
Well, in fact, and Otto brought up a very good point. It's pure pigment. There are no binders involved with pastel. And so they don't, so the aging is beautiful. We have in our library at home 3 pastels from the 18th century. They're portraits, and they look as if they were painted yesterday. You have to come see it, Otto.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to. I mean, that's one of the things, and again, referring to the pastel, it has such a rich history, prior to oil painting. And the fact that it can remain just, I mean, if it's taken care of, it can remain just the way it'll look the same, 100 years from now if it's taken care of, right? So there's no
ours are more than 300 years old.
Yeah,
and it looks pristine. And in fact, value-wise, artists such as Degas and Robert Blum, their paintings are going into the millions, the pastel paintings.
Absolutely.
So
I didn't know that.
yes, and Robert Blum has gone over 3 million, and I'm sure that Degas has so. And so there's people who appreciate them because of the longevity of them.
Absolutely, and I believe if you're familiar with the Scream, the original Scream, because there's a couple versions of them, but the original was done in pastel, and that one sold for well in the millions. So
yes. Sorry, just to interrupt. Sorry, just to say something. Peter, you mentioned that you have some pastels in your gallery that you could show. Is that right?
Yeah. If you can turn on my my iPhone.
Let's see.
Let me see. I can turn it on here.
Yes, there, and just not the volume. There
and then I'll switch the camera here.
The camera,
okay, can you all see this? These are my pastels right here. This is what I carry out in the field with me.
Can everybody see that?
Yes.
And I have a little box here. It's
you could see that he lays it out as a palette. So he's got his colors laid out where he wants them.
I say on that back, I say on my box that I carry, it's an old slide box for 35mm slides, pastel chalk, because when I go through the airport, they don't know what pastels are. So I say they're chalk.
Peter, Peter, could you turn your camera sideways? Could you turn your camera sideways so that people can see it more clearly?
Yeah, how's that? Is that sideways?
Yes.
There we are. There we are. That's a little clearer. And I will try to
Okay,
bring that up.
Then these are, yeah,
There we
these
are.
are some pastels right here, some of my Rembrandts, and I have other pastels. Oh no, these are Sennelier. Yeah, Sennelier. I've got a whole set of Sennelier and then a set of Rembrandts and other pastels. Now walking around the gallery here, and I think I can unplug this maybe.
The studio.
I think I can unplug it and I'll still be connected
Yes.
like I would to the iPhone. Here.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. So I'll come back here. Here's a painting that I'm working on for the On Location Malibu, but that's not pastel. That's oil.
Peter,
Oh, I'm disconnected now.
No, you're.
Peter, can you hear me?
Oh.
Is that a silver frame?
No, it's a gold frame.
Oh, it looks silver on the video.
I'm sorry. My iPhone here. Sweetie, can you hold my iPhone just a sec?
Okay.
This is a wall of pastels that I have here.
I'll give myself credit. I had actually designed these panels for Peter to keep his pastel paintings in place because he does so many as he's out on location. And this way he has them in front of him and he can see which ones he wants to work on next. So you can see they're sliding panels, but they're just like jewels. They're the tones, the colors are so gorgeous. Jewel tones.
Yes, I probably have 48 pastels up here and almost 48 on the other. So I'm working. Actually, this is the same spot, Golden Cove. You see this one that I did?
You need to go a little closer.
I actually did it the day before I did that painting that you have.
I'm not sure if I.
Elaine, can you go a little closer with the camera so people can see it at all? There we go. That's
Now I'm
clear.
getting into it. Okay. I couldn't see the view on the camera. Can you see that now, Ben?
Yes, yes.
All right. So go ahead, sweetheart.
Anyway, what I wanted to tell Otto was when I work in pastel, I actually think differently a little bit than I do in oil. I think of working atmospherically, and I also like to paint things that really aren't there, such as waves. When you paint a wave, you don't paint exactly what's in front of you because it's always changing. Every second it's changing. If you're painting a tree or a mountain in a landscape, it looks the same for about a half an hour or so. It doesn't change that much. But working in pastel, I rather like to work on these ephemeral effects that only last momentarily and try to get some of the atmosphere particularly. And so that's what I love to do with pastel when I'm working on pastel. And so, you know, everyone has their own way of working with different mediums. So to me, it's a relaxing thing because with my oil paintings, I tend to be a little bit more exacting and get the exact color and value right away. With oil, with pastels, since I'm working on a colored paper, a gray paper, and working with my fingers, is the pressure that I use to push the paint into the paper makes a difference as to what the value is and what the color is. So I can use a little bit more pressure and it might get a little darker depending on the tone of the paper. And so, but you don't have that way of working so much in oil painting. It's just different, and it's fun to have a different medium. It's like playing football and rugby, or just a different sport that's just as fun, and it sort of refreshes your mind too.
Well, that's gorgeous. Thank you for sharing that. That's absolutely gorgeous. Thank you.
Somebody asked in the chat a technical question of how do you attach the pastels to the panels?
Well, usually, Otto might be a little bit different, but he may be work on this kind of sandpaper, but I work on a Canson double ply paper, which is also thought of as a charcoal paper, but it's usually toned. And the way I adhere it is I mark the pastel, just put it on like you're drawing, and it stays. And then I will smudge it with my fingers.
But how do you put it on the panels?
When I frame it?
No,
when
no.
I-
On the storage panels in the
The
system.
panels are cork board.
Oh, these cork boards up there, and you just use.
In the corners, we just put, well, Peter puts thumbtacks in the corners. And once they're framed, the thumbtacks are, you don't see the little thumbtack mark. So that's how they're put up on the panels. And Peter has 4 large panels. They're double-sided cork board. They're on tracks, so we can slide them. When we have collectors here, they'll look at the panels and maybe select something, and then
Right, yeah.
Peter will take it down and finish it for them.
Wow.
Yes, most of the paintings up on my corkboard are not really finished. Now, oh, by the way, yesterday, I went out and I was shooting a video to do pastels. I'm doing a video. I'm going to be a presenter lecturer at the upcoming plein air convention. I think it's on April 14th to April 17th with Eric Rhodes and the plein air convention. So they want me to
Plein
do
Air magazine.
Plein Air magazine also too is involved. And they want me to be give a lecture for an hour. So I was shooting a video for that. So I did 3 pastels yesterday. Let me show you what they are.
You know, actually, while you're preparing, that's a good thing to point out. When Peter does these pastels, they are purely plein air on the spot. He'll get about 95% done within 2.5 hours. But then that last 5% that he brings back to the studio could take literally months. And that's his editing work and his thought process. But not what you're seeing on these boards, those are done in about 2.5 hours.
No, I put this up there. You haven't seen this yet.
Oh, this is new for me. This is what you did
Can
yesterday.
you show with
Yes, I'll bring the other camera so you can see that.
So yeah, yesterday I went out to Malibu, to Leo Carrillo, and painted these. And the middle one, which looks really unfinished, was done. There was a 35-mile-an-hour wind up there, and so I had to work on
Which one are you talking about? The middle one?
right
This
there, the middle one right there. Can you see it?
Yes.
And I just, I painted right into the glare. And so that was something that I enjoyed. It's always got good wave action there. And the lower one was just about sunset time, but I wanted to get that kind of hazy effect on the waves. I don't know if that shows up in my iPhone very well. Sometimes the photography isn't that good, and you've got to be very sensitive with photography about art, because if it's just a little bit off, it just ruins the effect, sort of. But
Peter?
yeah,
It's
guys,
just
Kathy.
tiny. Is there any way to, as you're looking at those images, just that they go, because I see you with all the paintings behind you, but when we just see the one in the background, it's, it's a 1/2 inch high by a 1/2 inch wide. So
If you,
is there a way to click on that and have that go to the main screen?
yes, you can do that individually. If you click on the 3 dots in the corner of that picture and click on pin. Unfortunately, the breakout room system doesn't allow me to blow it up for you all, but you can do it
Oh, that
yourself.
works. No, thank you.
Apologies for not thinking to mention that earlier. I'm so sorry about
Can
that.
you do that?
I
Oh,
will
there-
not mention it.
Thank you. That's beautiful, Peter.
Kathy, I was at your studio yesterday, and I saw
That's
some
right.
pastels you were working on too. And Otto, you should know about Kathy Cadgio. She started out in Oklahoma as a court painter. And so she paints a lot of, she used to paint a lot of heads and portraits of convicts. But she's a great pastelist, and she lives out in the Malibu area and does a lot of, you do pastel portraits and pastel seascapes as well too.
Some florals.
Oh, I think that's it. Thank you, sweetie. Now we're gonna turn off that pastels there. Yeah. And so it's exciting what you're doing with pastel too. it's really a lot of fun.
But these that you did, these three you did yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, they're amazing spontaneous emotion. And you did them what and how long for each one?
Well, the first one, the one on the top was about 2 hours. And the other one, I had to almost lay on my back
Oh, you know
So-
what, while you're saying.
with the wind. You know how that wind gets out there,
So hold
Kathy,
on, now that
in
you're talking
Malibu. I
about
mean,
it.
it's at least 35 miles an hour.
So that's
and-
this one you're talking about, that
Yeah,
you lay,
yeah,
you
with
lie
the-
down on your back
Right.
to do. Just
And-
like Michelangelo and the Sistine
Well,
Chapel.
you know, and I think that he's got a actual easel where you can tie a water bottle, you know, like a gallon bottle to it, or fill it up with sand. And I should have probably thought about that. But usually when I work with Pastel, I sit down and I have to hold it on my lap, and then I have another chair next to me with my pastels. And I enjoy the process of actually sitting, which I don't do when I paint in oils. I usually work standing up in oils. And so it's just a different way of working, sort of, and a little bit different mindset too. Yeah.
There was also a question from David Eisenberg about about your oils, I believe, whether you do it all from memory or an on-site plein air, or do you take any photographs back with you to work on them, or is your work entirely plein air for your oils?
Well, Ben, that's a very good question. And I often ask that question myself. I paint in all kinds of different ways. It depends on the subject matter that I'm doing. I will often go out and paint plein air and then bring it back and work on it. A lot of things that may be even larger, I will take some photographs sometimes and then bring them back and work on them. Usually I work on them for a while and with the blow up image, digital image of the work, and then I will not look at it and work on it more without looking at it, trying to put in my own interpretation. So I think that's always a kind of a interesting perspective. You know, so many people now today work just from photographs. And I think it's
So many artists.
so many artists, I'm sorry, yeah, work just from photographs. And I like to have something that's me in the painting rather than just a copy of a photograph.
Well, I know you told me that when you come back to the studio and working on a plein air work, you're actually doing the editing process and the design.
Yeah.
You're focused on design. So that's the art, I think the artist part, the poetry that goes into the work. So it's not a replication of the scene. You're really thinking about how the eye is being led, shapes, positive, negative shapes. So I think, you know, when we go out in nature, I mean, it's amazing with plein air, the vast amount of information we're looking at, and for an artist to just say, okay, this is what I'm being moved toward expressing in the work, and then to have to focus in that one area, and then at the same time edit it into this poetic scene. So I know Peter has told me when he comes back to the studio, that's where he really spends his time on the work. And that's that last 5% I was telling you about, is that designing part of it, the compositional part, the positive, negative shapes. And then I think you really, I know when I come to the studio to see what Peter's doing, I have to be invited. I can't just walk in. And so, and I'll see some of these working on, and he wants my instant response because he knows I have a fresh eye coming in. So I have emotional responses to the artwork, and it has a lot to do with his light. And so he really thinks about the light. And I think you really, that's a big part of what you're doing when you bring it back to the studio. But to answer David's question, I think you do, there's a lot in his, or no, but it was one of.
It was a question from a guest, one of the guests.
One of the guests. And that was a wonderful question, because I think that what's really fun to watch plein air painting, as I get to do so often, is a group of artists painting the same scene and interpreting it differently. And so that is where the poetry comes in. So when you're asking, Does he paint on site? Does he use photos? Does he use his mind? It really is his emotions and mind that do go into the work. So there is a lot of the mind. The scene will be recognizable, but it's definitely going to have the poetry from the artist in there. I'm sorry, I answered partly for you only because I'm your other half.
Of course, I'm always looking for things or places that are of particular interest to me, and hoping they'll be of particular interest to someone else. They're not always. I mean, you may only touch one out of 10 people, or 1 out of 100, but they're personal to me a lot of times. Do you think we could show that one painting that I'm working on here that's in back here?
Just to let you know, we may be wrapping up in a few moments. It may take us out of the room in a few moments. We'll get about a
Okay, well, maybe I should answer the other questions first.
Well, a lot of them are you're addressing many of the questions. I'm getting a lot of them as direct messages rather than the public chat, and you're addressing a lot of them as you're talking. I do just want to get in there before we get pulled out. If you are interested after hearing so many of the stories, these paintings are available on the Masters website, and you have until tomorrow evening to submit your ballot for the pieces. So now you've heard so much about them, they are available. But I just wanted to get that out there. And Peter, I'll let you carry on talking about the pieces. We'll have notice before we won't just get pulled out of the room. So I'll let you carry on talking. I just wanted to get that in there. Oh, there we are. We got the warning. We have a minute. Do you have anything left to say, Peter? We could talk all night.
Well, just a minute left.
Yes, I'm afraid so.
That other painting. No, I want to thank the Autry so much for allowing us to have this wonderful time to get together and to chat. And I hope you've learned a little bit something more about me and my art. But you know, it's the Autry Museum that really really should have the credit for doing such a wonderful job with the Masters of the American West and putting together such a stellar exhibition. And again, I like to say I'm very proud and honored to be part of this exhibition too. And I want to thank you all very much for tuning in. Thank you for joining us, and I'll hope to see you all later. And thank you, Ben, for all your wonderful technical advice and your kindness and expertise.